Coming up tonight on Game All Nite, Ben Maddox makes some controversial decisions, and I let him.
Welcome to Game All Nite.
Hello and welcome to Game All Nite. Tonight I am joined by Ben Maddox. Now, Ben is from our lovely show called 5 Games for Doomsday. And
that's right.
Ben, you also were on another podcast before that, which a lot of people know you from as well.
I was.
You were. So, and you were on there with a friend of the show, TC Petty III.
Indeed. The famous, luxuriant and fragrant TC Petty III.
Quite fragrant. I've actually been in his presence, and I've found it daunting and emasculating all at the same time.
Well, absolutely. He's incredible man mountain, so why wouldn't you?
The machismo is...
Indeed. And the musk. Let's not forget the musk. That hair generates an awful lot of musk.
If he could bottle that musk, I mean, he'd make
$10 at least.
Oh, at least. There's probably at least
and
15
and
people
a series
waiting
of class action lawsuits.
Excellent. So you recently started your own show, kind of like me. We started. It seems like we started at the same time almost.
Very similar, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and
except, I mean, yours has a wonderful set and production values and a great green room with lots of finger nibbles, whereas I am one of those people who sits in my bedroom alone.
I do try to make sure my guests are comfortable. It's very important that we, get comfortable and relaxed before a show like this.
I mean, I was hugely surprised at the sheer amount of pharmaceuticals that were in the room as well.
Oh well. We have had our rock and rollers every now and then, so we do have to be careful. So
well, you've had Flip Flory on here, and I imagine that guy is pure rock and roll.
Exactly. I mean, how can you not be? So your show started at the same time, and it definitely kind of highlighted for me, because I'm like, another interview show at the same time. But then I listened to it, and this happens a lot in our business where we listen to it and then we're like, oh, it's not. It's completely different. And I love the premise. If you have not had a chance to listen to the 5 Games for Doomsday, I highly recommend it because you put a great spin on the whole question taking and the way you weave the question in. Where I try to make my guests feel comfortable, you seem to want to stress them out.
Well, how do you mean stress them out?
Like,
do you mean challenge them?
You certainly challenge them. I mean, Ignacy was quite put out during his episode with having to pick 5, and then I'll leave the spoiler. I'm not going to tell anybody about that because you need to listen to it to hear it. The twist at the end.
I'll quickly explain the premise. But before we start, I do want to come clean. So every British person, when I think they read every British person who listened to the show, when they read the description of the show, thought, this is just desert island discs with board games. And I'm going to be frank with you. I cribbed part of the idea from classic flagship BBC Radio 4 show, Desert Island Disc, which has been running for, I think, 35, 40 years now.
Okay.
And so the whole idea is there's been an apocalypse, an unknown disaster, and you had to flee the city to a cabin in the woods, and you can only take 5 of your games with you. And you're right, Ignacy was perturbed at having to crib his collection down 5, which I found rewarding and hilarious.
It
Although
was
he completely cheated because one of his choices was this is no spoiler, but one of his choices was role-playing games. Which is
well, I
not
mean,
one game.
I guess he's taking a Kindle and he's just put them all, shoved them in there in PDF form. I guess is that
Exactly. But I was strict and I made him confine himself to one. I don't take any rubbish on my show.
no,
I'm the
no.
leader.
You definitely hold no quarter, and you ask the tough questions, and I love that your interview style is very thoughtful. You can definitely tell you do a lot of research on your guest, or you really kind of come from a place of knowledge. How much of that are you really kind of homeworking, or is it organic?
Well, I ask them before, so I record a lot in advance, and I usually get in touch with them a good 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, and I ask them to send me a bio, and I ask them to send me their list of games. So I look at the games. If I don't know the games, I research them. So I had Mark Herman on recently, who's the granddaddy of wargaming, and it's an area that I know nothing about. And so he gave me these list of games, and of course, because I'd never seen them before, so I had to go off and research them and find out what they were about, and sort of bluff my way through trying to have a conversation with an expert on war games when I know nothing about it. And then so Reiner Knizia, I interviewed Reiner Knizia, and this is upcoming. And Reiner Knizia was sort of easy because he has a Wikipedia page, because he's a man of he's a man of renown. He has a Wikipedia page, so you can go and do your research on him yourself.
Wow.
Whereas other people don't, and so you have to try and extract the information from them. And yeah, so then I write up a set of show notes, a series of questions. And then I usually, at some point in the show, want to ask the guest about a certain aspect, a certain topic. So Ignacy, for instance, was very vocal a few months ago on the responsibilities of a reviewer.
Oh, yes.
And what a reviewer should do and their obligations to the publisher. So in the episode, we spoke about that. And I asked him, essentially, I said to him, what right do you have as the publisher to tell reviewers how they should review games? And, it was a valuable chat. It was an interesting chat. And whilst my interview style is far from attacking,
right,
I think it's important to ask people interesting, stimulating questions. So they're and to if they've put themselves out there in public, to test that, But also it's about getting to know the person. And I think a lot of board game interviews talk a lot about the games, and that's fine because fundamentally that's the crux of it, right? But there are people behind these things, and it's interesting to get to know them as well as the things they do. And of course, I'm going on a bit now. Of course, it's not confined to just I'm going to interview artists, these sorts of things.
Right.
So it's the whole spectrum of the board game world and the people who create the hobby.
No, and guess what? That's exactly what drew me in, and it's what makes me listen to your show every time it comes out religiously. It bumps right to the top of my playlist for that very reason.
That's good.
I love the fact that, there's this new crop of people coming up who are saying, you know what? And I count myself and you as one of them, where we're just not interested in doing, reviews and top 10 lists and things like that. We want something different.
I do reviews.
Okay.
I do reviews. Well, the thing is, I do a show every fortnight. For the American listeners, that's every 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And so a 2-week gap for me is just too long.
Right.
Especially, listen to my voice. how can you live
long
for 2 weeks? Exactly. And so I do reviews. I do written reviews, and then I record them. And they're little 5-minute sections that come out every other week. But yeah, absolutely. I think, people like Tom Vassell have established a sort of modus operandi for board game media. And while I think, there's no doubt I would not be in the hobby now if it wasn't for Tom Vassell. You know,
True.
I mean, I think he's largely responsible in many ways for the explosion of the board game hobby, especially in the English-speaking world. Him, Shut Up and Sit Down, Rado, those sorts of people. But yeah, I think there is a second wave of content producers coming out that are doing something slightly different. And so I think the archetype of this, the people that are really, and again, you know, don't mind me saying this, they've stolen a format from BBC Radio 4, but this game is broken.
Right.
And they're doing a sort of comedy panel show around board games. And I mean, the production values are off the hook. Matthew Jude, who's on the show, does the editing, and it must take him hours. You know, when you've got a group of really funny people doing really, while innovative is a little disingenuous, as it's a very traditional format.
Right. For
the board gaming world, it's incredibly innovative and interesting and valuable. And I think you will see the character of board game media change over time.
I think what it is that, you know, we want to provide something that we enjoy in the real world, in, you know, our normal lives, but with the board game take and with the board game people, right? Like they like the show from Channel 4. I know Americans, we say Whose Line because it kind of has, you know, the same feel for us, where it's kind of on the cuff and it's game show and it's funny. You know, so it kind of gives me that kind of feel in a show. And I think that you can't underestimate, you know, the draw of the familiar, right? Like we want,
absolutely.
Yeah, we want something that kind of I can relate to. It's like, you know, and that's what, when I tell people what my show is, I'm like, I want to do like a Jimmy Fallon Saturday Night Live meets board games. It's like everybody describes their show kind of using somebody else, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there is a danger that you become essentially free marketing, right? So you get people on and you say, okay, talk about your games. And they give you their elevator pitch of their games. And that's what board game interviews become. And while, again, I think that's okay. And I think if you look at live streams, BGG and Dice Tower do from all the cons, that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see the games that are there.
Sure.
But I think there's also room for stuff that is a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit less hard sell. Right? And, you know, board gaming is a community. And the people who create games, I believe, are artists to some degree. And so getting under the skin of these people who create is really, really, really interesting and really, really valuable. And that's kind of why I do it. That's what I'm interested in, I think.
Yeah, I think that's totally the nail on the head, because I think there's, you know, I want to get to know more of these people outside of the box. Like I know the box that they make and I know where it comes from, but I want to get to know, you know, well, what inspired you to be creative? You know, content creators are easy. I can easily ask you, why do you want to do this? And why do you want to, I mean, you went through a rather public breakup for your last podcast, and now you want to say, hey, let's go do it again. And
yeah, I'm an actor. That's what I do as a profession. And so it's a natural inclination for me to want to do stuff. And I'm a true convert to the democratization of media, you know. Being a singularly unsuccessful actor, I really see the value of not only being able to create, but that creation not just being confined to you and a small group of people. Now, through the internet, through Libsyn and iTunes and YouTube, we are able to get that stuff out there. And, you know, I think it's truly we're going through the sort of Wild West period of it now, but I think really the cream is rising to the top. And if you look in sort of every area of podcast, it's just incredible stuff that is being done by people on their own, with no budgets and no constraints or sort of network censorship. And we are living in a true blooming of art and creativity across, you know, all facets. And it's amazing that the radio, the spoken word, the purely audio is spearheading that, because it became almost obsolete, you know, in the 90s, before the iPod, before the podcast. It was almost dead, and now I would suggest it's probably the most significant media format that we have at the moment.
Right. I definitely think it's an interesting time to be alive, because I feel anybody and everybody can have a voice. And I think that when we do the podcast or when we do a video show, I think it adds a legitimacy, because I think generally speaking, it's a person behind it doing it, not a persona or anything like that to kind of get in the way, like say, like forum chats and things like that become. I think this is the free radio of our age at this point, I would say.
Absolutely. And you know, being an actor and working as an actor, I also recognize that there is a lot of stuff that's out of your control. I mean, I remember I went to drama school with a guy, and he was the year above me. And in that year group above me, he was established as the best. Okay. He was absolutely fabulous, incredibly sensitive, incredibly talented, really had incredible presence and impact, and left drama school and didn't work.
Wow.
And it was completely unjust, but this is the nature of the business. You know, talent, sometimes talent doesn't get you by. Whereas with the democratization of new media, talent can get you by. And especially because you get a flood of all of this stuff, things that have quality are noticed. And that's really good. It's to some degree, and I might sound incredibly naive here, but it is to some degree a meritocracy. And that's what we all want, I suppose.
I do suppose. And I think that is a great place to pause and take a quick break. And of course, we're going to be right back with Ben after this. This week's media creator shout out is The Happy Loser. Dave is a very interesting person to follow and has started his recent series of pandemic playthrough I highly recommend. So be sure to check him out, youtube.com/TheHappyLoser. Welcome back. With me today is Ben Maddox. I hope you enjoyed that little pause there.
Oh, you would not believe what's going on backstage. My God, it's like a Roman vomitorium back there.
So, well, I mean, if anybody knows anything about backstage, it would be an actor. And for some reason, is Germany home to wayward actors? Because, you know, Dave Luza is from Germany and he's an actor.
Well, he's Dutch, I think, actually.
He is, but he transplanted as well.
He lives in Germany, yeah.
Yeah.
He lives in Dusseldorf, I think, yeah.
I guess there's just a lot of work, huh?
Excuse me while I cry. I think anywhere you go. So I lived in Vienna before I lived in Berlin. And there was a whole community there of sort of errant English-speaking actors. And there are in Berlin too. And I mean, yeah, it's the kind of thing. I have to do other jobs. I teach at a university, and most of my work is confined to the recording studio, doing voiceover stuff. So I recently did a thing where, for a museum exhibit, where I had to be an intelligent car, a la Kit from Knight Rider. You know? I mean, you end up doing some interesting stuff, and occasionally you'll end up doing a play, and inevitably, it's the inevitable thing, unless you're lucky. The corporate stuff that's completely soulless pays you stupid money, and the stuff that you love that is artistic pays you almost nothing. But you have to do it just to recharge the spirit, you know.
Is there a little supply and demand, you think, going on there? Nobody wants to do the corporate gigs.
No, everybody wants to do the corporate gigs. I mean, don't let this get out, because it'll impinge on my income. But corporations will pay stupid money for almost nothing. It's a wonderful scam that a lot of actors have got going on.
Fair enough.
But of course, I mean, the theater. Who goes to the theater anymore? Especially if I'm in a play.
No. So what have you done recently that if I was in Germany, I would be able to see?
Well, I went through a phase recently. There's an English theater in Berlin, and they do a science and theater thing because the artistic director's girlfriend, I guess. I mean, they're in their 60s, so it's a weird thing. But his girlfriend she's an eminent German biologist.
Okay.
And so I went through a phase of playing scientists. So I played Maurice Wilkins, who shared the Nobel Peace Prize for the discovery of DNA.
Okay.
I played Robert Hooke, who, whilst didn't invent the microscope, perfected microscopy. I didn't say that word correctly. And was famously, what's the word I'm looking for? When you sleep with a member of your family. Incestuous.
Oh.
So I played Robert Hooke.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
Exactly. And then I played Albert Einstein as well in a play.
So are you
not the wild-haired old Albert Einstein, but the young, foxy new physicist on the block, Albert Einstein. And it was really interesting, just this run of playing eminent scientists. And for someone as stupid as I am, it's completely ironic.
So what do you teach at university? You said you taught there as well.
Yeah, I teach English, which is what a lot of actors do. It's a great sort of second gig. There's a performance element to it. It's usually paid reasonably well because inevitably teaching English is a freelance thing.
Right.
It's very flexible. So you're able to sort of turn around to your job and say, hey, I'm not going to be here for 3 months because I'm doing a play. And usually that's fine. So a lot of actors sort of stumble into that as a second job.
Makes sense.
Because if I had to survive purely on the acting money, I'd be a lot thinner than I am.
Understand. So, but it seems like it makes sense because you're using a lot of the same skills. You're talking, you're having to be very careful with pronunciation. We can't be lazy with our accents and things like that.
And also I mask my complete ineptitude by acting like a clown for 2 hours in front of the students. So it works.
So is this how you had a prehistoric insect named after you? Was working in university? How did that come up?
No, that's through board gaming.
Really?
So board gaming's amazing. You meet a lot of people. So in Berlin, there's a huge mix of people that I usually, wouldn't be in the orbit of. So I know a lot of computer programmers. A lot of computer programmers play board games. I know a lot of scientists, usually physicists, but a very close friend of mine, James Jepson, very nice guy, is a paleoentomologist, which means he looks at prehistoric insects. And we were talking about it, and we were talking about, how often do you discover insects, and he said, it's a fairly regular thing. We discover about 5 or 6 a year. And I was like, bloody hell. I said, you've got to name one after me then, just as a joke. And he went, yeah, okay. And so it took a while. It took a couple of years for the paper to be researched and published. Honestly, I'm treading water here. I have no idea what they do. But it took a couple of years. He did his science thing that he did. And sort of, about a month ago, the paper was published. And now I'm immortalized as a prehistoric insect that is called, what's it called now? Oh, crikey, I've forgotten the name. Oh, God, isn't that embarrassing?
Okay.
And I was very happy to discover that within its family class, it has the longest pronotum.
Pronotum.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Don't ask me what a pronotum is.
But it's long.
But it's got the longest one of them.
That's all that matters.
Longicolum Ben Maddox. Get on the internet. Look it up. That's my insect.
I will certainly have to do that. So you enjoy doing that. I mean, you enjoy acting. What other hidden hobbies? I mean, like in the board gaming. So what other things do you like to do outside of this?
Well, I am a frustrated writer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I finished a book recently, sort of about a year ago. And it's one of those things, it took me ages to write, and it's a very personal thing, and it's fiction, but fiction is never really fiction. It's just
Sure.
the writer who's writing it. And it took me a long time because writing is bloody hard and you dredge all of this stuff up from your soul, And so it's just sitting on my hard drive at the moment. I haven't sent it anywhere because I'm scared to death everyone's going to tell me it's terrible. And until I send it off and receive the flood of rejections, it's still a possibility that I'm the next Ernest Hemingway, And it's spring here now.
Right.
And my big sort of abiding passion at the moment, because I've just started doing it again, is cycle touring.
Okay.
So you get packs on the back of your bike, packs on the front of your bike. You put your tent and your sleeping bag and your sleeping mat and your funky camping chair that you spent altogether too much money on. You put your camping stove and your food and everything, and you have your whole world. You're like a snail, and you have your whole world on this bicycle, and you can just have the potential freedom to go anywhere. And it's just the most glorious thing. So I'm going to cycle from Berlin to Belgium this year.
Oh, wow.
I have a friend who lives in Belgium. So sort of, 800 miles or so. And last year I cycled from Copenhagen to Berlin. And it's the best way to see a place. Because if you're in a car, you're in a train, you can see the scenery, but you're sort of hermetically sealed. And walking is too slow. But on a bike, you experience the whole thing, the smells and the sounds, and you really feel a part of the landscape, and it's absolutely wonderful. And my bucket list, they opened in America a bike path that goes essentially from Florida, wherever, blah, 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 where the alligators live, right up to Maine. And it takes you up that eastern seaboard of America, and that's something I really want to do one day. Because apart from being eaten by alligators, I'd imagine it's just, you see the most incredible things. And I recommend anybody go on a cycle tour, even if it's for 2 or 3 days, sleep in a tent, experience the world. It's purely magical.
So when you're riding, how far are you getting on each day?
So my usual plan is I cycle 100 kilometers and then I look for somewhere to stay.
Okay.
So in Germany, you have to stay in campsites, otherwise you get arrested. So I'll hit that 100-kilometer barrier, and then I'll look on my Navi and say, oh, where's the nearest campsite, and go there, And there's nothing, you cycle 100 kilometers, I don't know what that is in miles. Is that 80 miles, 85 miles, something like this?
Yeah.
And God, that if you've been cycling in 32 degree, now that's real 32 degrees, not your strange
so it's around
Fahrenheit
in the 80s,
system.
Fahrenheit.
And you've been cycling in that for 7 hours. That first beer you drink at the end of the day is just transformative. It's absolutely wonderful. And I just recently went on a tour like last weekend because the weather's improved, and just beautiful, and cycling through paths bordered by cherry trees and the blossoms out. And even though my allergies are firing off and I can barely see, it's just, you feel a part of the planet, and that's a really valuable thing.
Now, do you currently reside in a city or in a town, and you're looking like, is this a great way to get out, or?
Yeah, in Berlin, and
okay.
Berlin's a big metropolitan city, but the countryside is relatively near. So you cycle sort of 10 miles and you're in the countryside. It's not this huge sort of urban sprawl. And so, in the winter, you get sort of confined to the city and the dirt and the grime and the smell and the people and the confinement. And it's just so wonderful to get out in the countryside and see animals and trees, and green. It's really liberating. And the winters here are absolutely dreadful. Although I'm sure where you are, they're much, much worse.
They are and they aren't. It's weird. Winter's been so different than when I was a child. It's like, we used to get snow all the time. Now it's like we get no snow, and then all of a sudden in like March now we get our big storms. It's very strange the last few years. So
yeah, it's no question that the Yeah, it's no question that the seasons are shifting.
Yeah,
And if you'll excuse me, a little bit of politics, even although, right, I don't know why climate change is a political issue. I don't know why it's a political issue. It's got nothing to do with politics. It's clearly happening. It's a scientific issue. It's not a political issue. We don't seek to render people unemployed from dirty industries because we hate them. Right. It's just because we need to stop, otherwise the world will die. That's my 2 seconds on climate change. I'm just rather ashamed. I said to you before we started recording that I was out riding my bike in the sun. So I've got a Trumpian complexion at the moment that I'm a little embarrassed about. This is real, though. This isn't fake tan. This is real from graft on a bicycle.
Absolutely. Now, do you have a significant other or anything? Because it sounds like you're spending a lot of time out and about.
No, I don't. I live the sort of life of the libertine in Berlin at the moment, and which is wonderful. I mean, I'll settle down at some point when I'm too old to move anymore. But yeah, I get around, I see people, and I do things, and Berlin's a great place to do that.
Outstanding. All right, well, I appreciate this. I think it's time to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and I think it's time to turn the tables on your show a little bit and play a little game. How does that sound?
I'm very excited.
All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show. Real quick, I just wanted to take a moment to let you know a few things about us. Number one is we have a Pod Pledge page. Now on there, you can donate any amount, monthly, weekly, daily, whatever, and any of that goes directly to support the show, build the sets, better equipment, and all those things. I'm not trying to get rich. I'm not trying to quit my day job. It just anything helps. Number two is please check out our social media. If you're not following us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, please do so. We definitely interact with our people a lot on there because we want you guys to be part of this show. Also, be sure to subscribe to YouTube. You know that little red button down there? Make sure you're clicking that, and also do the bell icon so that you can get notified whenever we post a video. Once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. Lastly, please be sure to tell your friends. Whether you retweet something, whether you go out and you tell them about the channel, show them a show, anything you can do to get the word out, we would greatly appreciate it. So that's it. I'm now going to return you to your regularly scheduled program. Operators are standing by. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's now time for Games with Guests with Ben. So, as you heard earlier, we talked about his show, the 5 games for Doomsday, and the 5
I came up with that title myself.
It's wonderful. It's glorious. And I like the fact that Doomsday could change at any point. Like, it could be a zombie apocalypse. It could be a nuclear holocaust. Yeah. I mean, you got a lot of room to play with that. All right. So what we're doing is I flipped it on Ben today and I said, what are the 5 games that you do not want to save for Doomsday? Now, it doesn't, like your show is not what are your 5 favorite games, because people want to pick things for different reasons. And I love some of the thought. Like Gilhova put a ton of work into his episode, trying to figure out exactly why he did that, right? So we kind of went the same road a little bit here with the 5 we don't want to save for various reasons. So Ben,
who's going to go first? You or me?
I'm gonna paint the picture, so you'll go first. How's that?
Good.
So the mothership has come. It is over every major city. I live near Philadelphia.
Are they Greys or are they Greys or Nordics?
We don't know yet. We don't. We just see ships. Okay. We just see large ships, and they could be saucers, whatever shape you choose to imagine. And
I like the Arrival shaped ships.
Yes, just big and ominous and obvious. Yeah. I guess just large is the overwhelming. If you were sitting in Berlin, you would not know what shape it was because all you'd see is dark. How's that?
Right.
Okay. Right. So you and I are both in major cities, likely to be targeted for these events, and we are trying to escape. Hopefully you have another vehicle other than your bike so that you could do this a little faster.
You only need a bike.
Okay. Well, you're definitely safe if you run out of gas because it's only you that powers it. So there is that.
Exactly.
And you're at the local game store. So it's not your collection because obviously some of these we might not even want in our house. But
Right.
so there are 5 games that you will maybe use for a shield or to throw at somebody who's trying to escape or to give to some hipster person who thinks it's the next greatest thing. So what 5 games are you going to grab? So what's one of them, sir?
Well, obviously, I've gone for the obvious first one. So I think the role within this 5 games for Doomsday scenario is part of it is curation, saving games for the future generations. Okay. So part of that is not curating, not taking games with you so the future generations don't have to suffer through them. And this is an obvious one, but it's clearly Monopoly.
Oh,
We can live in a wonderful future world in which gamers are never asked the question, what? You mean like Monopoly ever again? Because it's never existed.
I like it a lot. That makes a lot of sense. So I kind of felt the same way a little bit, but I kind of say my first one's a little bit of a grudge. I just everybody said it was awesome. I played it, and sure some of the bits were nice, but it just like the art is not great, and it's
I know
Splendor.
what you're gonna say.
It's Splendor. I'm not. I think the chips would help in the weight in the box. So when I threw it at somebody, it might hurt them. And if they're trying
you could
to
sharpen them.
right, yeah, exactly. I think they have potential value that way, but I'm not. It's not one I feel the need to survive. I'm not Noah's Arking it here, but I'm definitely no. It can stay behind. Its bright yellow box would probably draw too much attention, and the guy just staring at the diamond on the cover just kind of freaks me out a little bit too. So
Yeah.
I think for all
Avarice
those reasons,
is not attractive.
no. And for all those reasons, I'm totally passing on Splendor. All right, so you went with the classic, albeit American favorite, Monopoly. What are you going to follow that up with?
Oh, if you want classic, my next one is this is a game in which a whole industry of snobbery has been built around, where unless you play this game, you're somehow an inferior human being. Where we all know what gaming is sitting around a table and swearing at your close friends. So the one I have to get rid of, even though there are beautiful iterations of it, is chess. Chess has to die.
I agree. It's my number 3 on my list too, actually.
Ah.
And
because we want an egalitarian society afterwards. We don't want this elitism that chess represents.
Exactly. I think I'm right there with you. It feels like it's just, I don't know, that, and I'm complete rubbish at it. I
played it as a kid and I never really understood it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resentment involved.
Yeah. So it might be us being bitter, but if it's Doomsday, we'll have to trust that Kasparov is going to grab a copy so we don't have to.
Right. And if I'm going to rule our community, then you'll do what I say. God damn it.
Just
I
like
do rather see myself as a proto Jim Jones. In some ways, I'm quite looking forward to the apocalypse.
So, all right. So now I have. So you took that one, and I totally agree. So I guess I'll go with the next one. And I'm gonna go for one that kind of shows where our society sits. That something like this could be as popular as it is. And I think it redefines the word guilty pleasure. And while I enjoy it for a round or two, I don't enjoy it for the let's play the entire box. And that's Cards Against Humanity. I like what it's trying to do. I think that there are others that are funnier that are in the same vein, but it just, I just feel like I'm taking a box of indecency with us to this refuge that we're all going to live in, and it's going to be dick and fart jokes for the rest of the millennia, and that kind of scares me.
I mean, that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years, but I understand people's objections to Cards Against Humanity. I don't necessarily understand the huge sensitivity. I think
yeah,
there's a contextual element to it. But my big issue with Cards Against Humanity is it just is the law of diminishing returns, right? You play it once and it's hilarious. You play it twice and it's fine. You play it 3 times and it's tedious. I haven't played Cards Against Humanity for about 5 years since the first 3 times I played it. And when people suggest it, I think, it's just not going to be funny. And that's its biggest sin for me. It's just, it's not really a game. And I'm all about being, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm all about being puerile. Okay. But if you're going to be puerile, you should at least be funny, right?
Yeah. And I think that, we all have dirty enough minds that we can do it all on our own. I don't necessarily think we need
Which is why Say Anything... Yeah, which is why Say Anything is the best version of Cards Against Humanity. Because you get to write. Or Telestrations is also... Yes. A wonderful alternative to Cards Against Humanity. Because if you want to go blue, you can go blue.
Exactly. And the only rub is that if you're just not clever, you're not clever. It's just it's kind of life's draw, right?
It's a cross. It's a cross I've bared for my entire life, unfortunately. And I can't even say I make up for it in my looks. Sometimes the world is unjust.
I think you have a British Kevin Spacey thing happening, but, that's just...
Oh, God, you can't call me Kevin Spacey now.
Why?
2 years ago, Kevin Spacey's fine. You can't call me Kevin Spacey now.
Yeah, true. Can't, at least in looks. Maybe you're the new version that can replace that.
All right, yeah. All of that Kevin Spacey stuff, I don't do
the crap stuff.
Okay?
Yeah. But, okay, your Kaiser Soze. Oh, did I just ruin something? Sorry.
Yeah, you don't need to watch the movie now.
All right.
Barely paid a penny for that guest appearance.
So what, sir, is your third?
So my third is a great game, objectively, a beautifully designed game. But it was the first heavy Euro game I played. I played it with people of far more calculatory, if that's a word, minds than me. And I was absolutely humbled. And so I've held a resentment against that game ever since.
Okay.
And that is Trajan.
Trajan.
Might be controversial.
Wow.
But I played that game and was absolutely destroyed. I was lapped by everyone else who played the game. And I've never quite forgiven the game for it. Even though I've played it since and I've enjoyed it, there's still part of me that would experience extreme joy in seeing a zombie consume that game.
Wow. That's impressive. I have a confession to make, and this is completely unplanned. We came up with our list separately.
And just between you and me too.
Yeah,
I mean,
no one else needs to know.
Needs to know.
Trajan's okay. I don't mind it, but I understand your feelings because I feel the same way about another Feld, and that is Macau.
See, I've never played Macau, and I hear varying reports of it.
Macau is... I understand. I have a few friends who are in love with it. Now, you're also talking to a guy who I will, if I'm ever stuck in this scenario, probably grab an 18xx game with me.
Wow.
So I like the big...
It'll give you something to do at least for
exactly.
5
I
days.
can cut it out and punch it for several months. But Macau just, I think it needs to click with you. And it just... I look at that game and I've played it several times, and no, it just does not, my brain, whatever it's trying to do, my brain is going, no, we don't want any part of this. And I mean, I'm not usually super competitive in a game, but this one takes it to a whole new level. Like, lapped is easily what's going to happen. I just cannot.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not about winning, it's about having a feeling of agency.
Yeah.
And there are some games that just deny you that. And it's probably, it's probably a fault in your own wiring. But sometimes you just play a game and you just end up getting fumingly angry at it just because you can't grok it. And yeah, I think that's a perfectly legitimate reason to be to just feel like you'll never be any good is a perfect reason.
Excellent. So right now I believe that's your third, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So, sir, why don't you tell me what is your fourth game?
So, if we live in a community together in a shack in the woods,
Okay.
with me sort of presiding as a sort of less
Makeshift
manic
chief.
Manson type figure.
Okay.
We want harmony, and we want games that promote a feeling of collegiate happiness. What we don't want is a game that will inspire paranoia and will end up with members of the community waking up in the morning dead with a knife in their back. And so diplomacy has to go, I'm afraid.
Ooh.
Whilst I've played diplomacy many times and have never been offended by being betrayed, and I'm inevitably betrayed by it.
Okay.
I've had people be annoyed by this, and I've been told anecdotes of people who are genuinely hurt by their partner betraying them. And we can't allow that in the community.
No.
Because how am I to exert a cult-like control over all of the people beneath me if they're stabbing each other over games of diplomacy,
I totally get that. It makes a lot of sense.
There'll be a lot of guns around the compound.
Yeah, you don't need anybody getting mad at each other. Fair enough.
Exactly.
All right. So coming up on number 5 for me is going to be... Now, I went classic with my number 5, like you did on the first one. Mm-hmm. And again, this is more out of a long, drawn-out hatred of the game, even though I think I may own 3 copies of it. But I just, I don't know. I struggle, and maybe it's because I'm not intelligent, but I definitely don't feel the need to prove that to anybody as we get older. And as we age in this compound, I still don't think I'd like Scrabble at all. I don't want to play a word game. And you could lump most word games in this category, sure. But Scrabble specifically just does no. I feel like I'm an idiot every time I play that.
Scrabble is not about having a large vocabulary. Scrabble is about knowing where to place an X. Yeah. So whilst it's definitely a game, it's not a test of your intelligence or your vocabulary or your command of the language. It's your ability to memorize words that score well on Scrabble. And so I have no issue with people enjoying it and being good at it. That's not a problem. I'd like to pimp the wonderful Gil Hover's game Wordsy, because that's a word game that's a joy to play. And that is a test of your vocabulary, and it's a test of your joy at creating words. And even though I played Wordsy the other week, and my word was Gesamtkunstwerk, which is a word used in English, and someone chose the word something like spiky, and they scored more points than me. I was absolutely appalled, but Wordsy's wonderful. If you want to play a word game, play Wordsy. It's absolutely spectacular.
I am a fan of hardback. I like the way you play and build things up. Too. So I do like that stuff, but maybe it is, I take that back. It's not all word games. Maybe it's just specific to tile placing word games with a limited letter economy, I guess is a better way to say it.
It's a perfect description.
Exactly. All right, sir. So what game are you going to throw to the wolves on your way out the door of this game store that we spent way too long in already?
So, there is a game that lasts 8 hours
Oh,
that you could determine by rolling a d6 at the beginning of the game
okay.
and just awarding the victory to the person who rolled the highest number and save all of that time. Also, it's very big and would suffice as a bludgeon, and that is Twilight Imperium.
Oh, wow.
I am not a fan.
Oh,
The space theme kind of leaves me a little cold, but that's not the reason. It's now. Okay, I have to confess I haven't played Twilight Imperium 4. I've only played Twilight Imperium 3, but I've given Twilight Imperium 3 4 attempts now.
okay.
That's a large part of my finite life.
Absolutely.
Spent playing that bloody game, and I have found it endlessly frustrating. Basically, if you start the game, if you're the first player, you win the game, but it takes you 8 hours to get to that inevitable conclusion. So the radioactive wolves will be gnawing on the plastic components of Twilight Imperium 3rd edition.
Well, like you say, on the plus side, you probably would take out 3 people in the process of throwing this. You know, whether it's a zombie or an alien, it would probably take out a bunch. So I totally get it. Well, that's been a lot of fun. I think we've definitely have interesting lists, and I like our little crossovers here.
Improved the world immeasurably, I think.
Now,
why
the question
I'm not the president of Germany, I don't understand.
Yes. And I'd like someday, I can't wait for the bonus episode where you tell us your five games someday.
Well, now you should mention this. So I started my Patreon campaign, which all of you lovely people can go to. That's patreon.com/5, the number, G, the letter, 4, the number, D, the letter. And one of the perks is that you get a free download. Well, it's not free because you're paying for it, obviously. But one of the perks, you get a special episode in which the ever wonderful and erudite Gil Hover interviews me for my 5 games.
Outstanding. So where can people find you these days?
So, I'm on Twitter. 5, the number, games. 4, the number, Doomsday.
Okay.
I have a website. Is 5gamesfordoomsday.com.
Thank you for joining me, Ben. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your night while you game all night. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our efforts at comedy and fun, please support us on Podpledge. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, don't forget to engage with us on Board Game Geek Guild 3134. You can also check us out on our website, gameallnightshow.com. This show has been made possible through supporters like these. Angry Octopus.
I am verbose, so if I'm going on too long, just stop. Well, every 2 weeks. Every fortnight. Americans learn the word fortnight. It makes you sound sophisticated.
And I'm not counting my weight in stone. Sorry. It's just not happening.
But it's the logical way to do it.
It's a rock. I'm 3 rocks.
Look at the podcast on your player. There are some lovely frames. Was done by this gracious man here, because I wouldn't have a clue. And he did it completely unbidden, and they are beautiful things. So we haven't actually spoken voice to voice, so thank you very much for that as well. That's absolutely
no
wonderful.
problem. I just saw a need and thought, you could use a little art push, so no problem.
Yeah,
anytime.
no, absolutely amazing.
So